Good day, everyone. Meteorologist Mark Molnar here. Great to have you here with me with this edition of MeteoMark's weather. We're watching Invest 96L here east of the Bahamas, our broad area of low pressure here across the Caribbean. Could this actually become a tropical storm or hurricane as we head later this week into next weekend? It is a possibility here. We'll take a look and see what the likely track and strength of this big area of low pressure is likely to be and what is going to happen with Invest 96L along the U.S. East Coast. We'll see the projected path of that as well as intent. And could our Caribbean storm actually be making a beeline for the eastern Gulf of Mexico or potentially even Florida here as a potential major hurricane? We'll get into all the details along with that and your North American big pattern change here. Let's get into it. So starting off with our European model here, you can see this is Invest 96L here. This is outlined with the development through about 5 days potentially here. We have an area of high pressure off the U.S. East Coast. Here is another system, low pressure, broad area of low pressure over the central Caribbean. We're going to be watching this for development too over the next several days. So a very active time starting up here in the tropics. You can see Invest 96L becoming a little bit better organized as we get towards the 30th here into the 31st. It does start to look like it might be coming some sort of subtropical system by this point. So whatever this becomes, the good news is it looks like it's going to slide just to the west of Bermuda, although it does look like it's going to clip Bermuda with some of its moisture here, and then just off the U.S. East Coast. So some of this moisture might make it into parts of Cape Cod and Nantucket. So whatever the system becomes, it is going to head out into the North Atlantic here. It looks like it affect eastern Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, however. But by this point, it will be extra tropical or becoming absorbed into the westerlies. Now, if you take a look at our system here into the Caribbean, this is towards November 1st, so we're getting towards the middle of the week here. Our system's becoming a little bit better organized. So if we just back up just a little bit, you can see the weakness here, some shower and thunderstorm activity. This continues to head to the west here as we head towards November 2nd and 3rd, likely bringing some heavy rain here to parts of Jamaica and maybe even the Cayman Islands. But eventually this system should start to take off and develop. You can start to see it just south of Jamaica by this point. So this is November 3rd. So we're getting later in the week here. This is something we need to really keep an eye on. I'm going to show you what the GFS does with this momentarily. Heading towards the west, the European really blowing this up by next weekend. So could we be looking at a tropical storm or maybe even a hurricane? It is quite possible. Here's Belize and here's the Central American coast. You can see lots of moisture funneling in here. The system's going to have a lot of moisture to work with. And we could be looking at a landfalling system here by next weekend into the early part of next week. And could this cross over into the Eastern Pacific? It is quite possible. Or it could push to the north here and it may become a problem in the southern Gulf of Mexico. That's something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on here. The rest of the Atlantic, the intertropical convergence zone, if we just been through here the next several days, there's that system, another system moving towards the Lesser Antilles. So another system we'll have to keep an eye on here as we go out in time. And some of this tropical moisture as we head towards the end of the forecast period here, it is hinting here on the European model that some of this moisture from whatever this landfalls here into Central America could eventually towards November 7th get funneled up into parts of the southeastern United States here. You can see it getting funneled into this frontal boundary. So taking a look at the GFS here, we're comparing to the European model. You can see there is Invest 96L. One thing to note here that's really showing up really well here on the GFS is look at the heavy rains for Puerto Rico, parts of the Virgin Islands, the Leeward Islands, over towards Dominican Republic here. We're going to see a big plume of moisture all the way down to Trinidad and Tobago for that matter. You can see this system really pushing towards the northeast, but it does have a massive tropical connection. Now, what's happening here too is our next system kind of spinning off a lot of this moisture, and it's really showing up nicely here on the GFS. There is whatever's happening with Invest 96L, it's pretty much following what the European model was showing, exit towards Newfoundland here. So that looks like mainly the only land areas, although Bermuda, you could get clipped by the eastern side of this. Now, our attention turns to whatever this is. This broad area of low pressure really starts to take shape by the 2nd. So later this week, about Thursday, Friday timeframe, if you're in Jamaica, even Hispaniola, Cayman Islands, and then eventually the coastline here is Central America. Let me just zoom out for you here so you can get a point of reference. I know it looks really stormy on this, but look at this. As we head towards November 3rd and the 4th, this area of low pressure really starts to get cranking. So right here, you can see, let me just outline it here for you. Here is Jamaica. And here's the Cayman Islands, Hispaniola, Cuba. So this is a very large area of low pressure that really starts to get cranking later this week. Does this mean potential landfall here into Central America? Here's the Central American coastline. It's looking quite possible at this point. And could this actually spin up into a tropical storm or hurricane? It's looking very likely that it could at this point. Landfall point would be later next weekend, it looks like. Depending on whether you're following the European or the GFS, you can see plenty of tropical moisture. At the very least, it's looking like a tropical storm at this point, but there's something that the GFS is doing that the European is not, and that's a little bit concerning. Towards November 6th here, look where it starts to head. Instead of pushing westward here towards another landfall into Central America, it starts to pull up along the east coast to the Yucatan Peninsula, right along the coast here, Cancun. And look at the tropical moisture. We got the next area of low pressure diving southward here across the plains of the United States, and that's going to start to tug on this system. Could this system actually make it into the southern and eastern Gulf? This is a trend we're going to have to keep a very close eye on. This model run of the GFS is showing a more easterly component towards Cuba. And then eventually the Florida Keys, you can see, blowing this up into a full-fledged potential major hurricane. So that's something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on, because this model run solution, it is 228 hours out. Here, South Florida, it is possible that this could come to fruition. But as I said, when you get out more than 200 hours like this, your model spread is massive. So you could be looking at a several 100-mile difference here. So please stay tuned. What does the GFS do after this? Well, it does kind of push it up out to sea here, which would be great news, although it does push it towards Bermuda here towards November 8th. But as I said before, this is way too far out to get into anything regarding this. So it looks like at this point, if you're in Central America, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, keep a watch out, and then even into parts of the eastern Gulf of Mexico here. Please stay tuned. And looking across the Western Caribbean here, you can see most of the rainfall there is confined into the Eastern Pacific, starting to stretch into parts of Central America, especially the Pacific coastline as we head through the middle part of the week. You can see we start to see a major surge in tropical moisture here across parts of eastern Jamaica and Hispaniola and eastern Cuba, where rainfall amounts could be upwards of 40 to 60 millimeters on order of 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Now, looking at the Eastern Caribbean, this is where things are really, really interesting with Invest 96L. You can see rainfall is going to be pushing up on the east and south side of the system over the next couple days. Puerto Rico, parts of the Virgin Islands could get upwards of 100 millimeters, close to 3.5, 4 inches of rainfall. Into parts of eastern Hispaniola here in Dominican Republic, you could see upwards of 75 millimeters, close to 2.5, 3 inches of rain. So a rainy time of it with Invest 96L. So as we go into the Eastern Pacific here, you can see we have our next tropical system here in form of development here. And you can see it is going to start heading towards the coast initially here, really blowing up here on the European model, coming very close to the El Salvador coastline here, Guatemala, something we'll have to keep an eye on. But, you know, it does start to push back towards the southwest here. So it looks like the good news is this system's going to be heading out over to the open Pacific here. Now, what's going on over here into the Western Pacific? There is actually not a whole lot going on. The Philippines look pretty good. We have this area of low pressure east of Japan here. That's going to be heading up towards the Aleutian Islands here, but there's nothing that looks really threatening as we head through the next several days. You can see there is not a lot to talk about. Now, we do start to get some moisture over towards North Vietnam over here and then into the central Philippines here. So that'll bring some moisture. And then we got a big cold core system up here northeast of South Korea, and then heading up towards Japan. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on here, but I don't think this is anything tropical to really worry about. So as we just zoom out here, you can see we're heading towards the first week of November. There is not a whole lot to talk about here. This system might bear watching here as we head towards November 7th and 8th. There is persistent shower and thunderstorm action here, but at this point, it doesn't look like anything major, at least through the short term here. So rounding out the rest of your Sunday evening and Sunday night, you can see the stream of moisture just streaming from Texas, Arkansas, all the way up across the east. You can see rain continuing heavy at times here across parts of the mid-Mississippi River Valley up into the Ohio River Valley. This is where we could see, a solid 1 to as much as 2 inches of rain in some of these areas. So definitely watch out for this. We could be seeing, not too much flooding, but this is some good rainfall. It's a good soaking rain here across the Ohio Valley into parts of the Northeast as well. And as you can see, at 4 a.m. Monday morning, you see that area of low pressure winding up here across upstate New York. That's going to continue to push rainfall. You can see east of Cleveland into Erie is the heaviest here, and that's going to move into the area during the morning rush hour here across the I-81 corridor of New York and Pennsylvania, up over to the Hudson Valley, Catskills, Poconos. You can see up into parts of New England. Rainfall continuing to get heavy up there into Maine, and look what starts to happen behind it. You knew the proverbial lake effect was going to kick in here. Southeast of Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, even the upper Great Lakes up there. We might get a Georgian Bay connection, and some convective type elements start to take effect here as we head into Monday evening here across Syracuse, Cortland area. We could see some heavier showers and maybe even some of that Graupel ice balls mixed in essentially with that convective type elements coming off Lake Ontario there. So interesting, and still rainfall here across the Gulf Coast. Now across Texas, this is gonna pretty much move out of most of Texas by Monday afternoon. You can see that heavier rain from San Antonio, Austin. This is 5 a.m. Monday morning, but watch how quickly this does move out of the region. You can see this is by noon. It's kind of a steady rain, and it is moving out of the region towards Louisiana, where you actually do need some rainfall as well. I wanted to show you here, it is showing up on the HRRR model. This over here is Invest 96L. Look at this. Yeah, this is associated with it. It's going to continue to pivot towards the north. We may be looking at some sort of subtropical or tropical system forming here. So taking a look at your weather for North America from Canada to the United States. Let's take a look. Canada's looking pretty quiet here, a little low up towards Hudson Bay. It's in the United States here that we have a big trough kicking in from the Rocky Mountains. That's going to kick those showers and thunderstorms, as I showed you on the HRRR model, out to the north and to the east here. Look at this. As we get a timestamp on this, this is Monday at 8 a.m. There's our area low pressure here across parts of upstate New York. You can see the rainfall pivoting all the way down towards the Gulf Coast there. And that system starts to move out for October 31st. You can see Tuesday high pressure building in. Most areas looking rain-free except the Carolinas here. This is where you could see some residual showers with our system exiting along the coast. This does try to blow up towards November 1st, Wednesday. You can see just off Cape Cod here towards Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So watch out for some showers and some wind there. This pattern is going to get a little bit quiet. You do see we have a system just waiting off the Pacific Northwest here into parts of Western Canada. Now, that system is going to plow in for later in the week, Thursday and Friday. You can see that's basically the only show in town, a big area of low pressure here off the the Pacific coast here. Now, there is a low pressure system moving across the Great Lakes here that's going to produce some clouds and some showers here across southern Ontario and Quebec into the eastern lakes as well. That's for November 5th. So that's getting into the middle part to latter part of next week. So the big show is going to be stolen by the Pacific Northwest out here, this area of low pressure pushing in, and that's going to push some energy here into the plains. You see by November 6th, high pressure controlling much of Canada with the exception this low blowing up over the Canadian Maritime. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. It is tapping into some tropical moisture out here, but you can see as we continued in time here, there's that area of low pressure, typical Colorado low, bringing some overrunning precipitation taken with it across parts of the Ohio Valley into the Great Lakes for November 7th into the 8th. And you see we have a developing system here tapping into some potential tropical moisture here. That's something we're going to definitely have to keep an eye on here. Tropical moisture is going to be flowing up from the south from a lot of these tropical waves or potential tropical systems by this time. So the pattern becomes very, very strong and active by this point. You can see high pressure retreating across eastern Canada and northern New England here by November 7th. So we're going to take a look at the upper air pattern in North America with our medium range climate model. You can see that trough across the east. That's going to last through much of this week. But look at that ridge starting to build there across the west. That's going to spell more troughiness next weekend into early the following week across the east. And that's going to pivot off the coast. You see a little ridge building in. A really fast-moving pattern really gets flowing here as we get towards the middle of the month. You can see lots of troughs, though, average out in the east with a ridge out west. Now, look what starts to happen towards the 15th, the middle of the month. You start to see a ridge building across the east. Trough's going to take its place by the 19th. Look what happens, though, Thanksgiving week, though, as we get into the Monday the 20th, all the way through the rest of the week. We start to have a ridge start to build towards Thanksgiving Day across the east before Friday the 24th. A big trough across the east starts to kick in. So that will be unsettled conditions as we continue. And then as we head the rest of your November here, we're just averaging out to a trough in the east, a ridge out west. Don't go anywhere. In just a moment, I have plenty more weather for you, but take a look at a word here from my affiliate.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
And taking a look at a liquid equivalent precipitation totals here. Look at this as we go through the rest of Sunday into Monday. You can see heavy rain stretching from Texas all the way up into the Ohio Valley, Pennsylvania, New York, and then parts of New England. You can see what's going on here is we got a stalled out frontal boundary, and we're going to have areas of low pressure riding up along it here, anywhere from about an inch to an inch and a half on average. Some areas in the purples here upwards of 2 inches. And starting off, zooming in with Texas here, this is later Sunday into Monday. You can see rainfall totals from the central and northeastern part of the state really racking up here in excess of 2 inches. Some areas closer to 3 inches, all the way up into Arkansas. And liquid equivalent precipitation amounts from the Ohio Valley into parts of the northeast here, southern Ohio, across much of Pennsylvania, upstate New York, northern New Jersey, into parts of southern and central New England. That's where we'll be seeing most of the rainfall falling late Sunday, Monday, and into early Tuesday, upwards of an inch expected. Cleveland up to Buffalo, Erie, and Syracuse, about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So here we go with your temperatures. This is a massive change, especially for the southern plains. Look at this. This is actually down into the 40s for highs on Monday across much of Texas. This is crazy. All the way up into the Ohio Valley into the northeast. Major cool down here with 40s as the popular number. Into Tuesday, we moderated a little bit, but you know what? Most of Texas is still in the 50s. Even much of the deep south here. New Orleans only 61. Florida and parts of Georgia here holding on to some warmth, as well as out west here in California and Arizona. Look at this big pool of, it looks like Arctic air up here into the northern plains into Wednesday. That kind of stays bottled up as we get another warming trend out here across the central plains. So that is some good news. You'll get back to some nice warmer temperatures out here, although it's still going to feel cool or cold by any stretch of the imagination into Thursday. Even into the northeast, we start to get highs closer to 50 here, which is a little bump up above your average here in many of these areas. But the plains, you start to see more 60s across the deep south as well. So getting more comfortable. Look at that, 70s by the end of the week here, Friday. And here into the Northeast, we warm it well into the 50s. So just in time for the weekend, we're going to warm things up a bit, which is actually going to bring it to a nice temperate type pattern setting up here across much of the East as we get into next Saturday. Extended outlook from our hometown viewers, Binghamton to Scranton, Upper Susquehanna River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania, Monday through Friday. Take a look at this. We start off right around average. It will feel cooler because of the clouds and the rain on Monday. Look at that, 1/4 of an inch of rain as the cold front pushes away. Tuesday, sunny skies. Another system moving in for Wednesday, chance of rain and snow showers. That will be generally under a slushy inch, mainly across the hilltops. 44 for a high, but look at this, a warming trend. By the end of the week, Friday, we approach 55 degrees. Look at those overnight lows, though. They will be hard freeze territory.
As always, thanks for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Take a look at my Facebook page at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Hurricane Northeastern to follow the tropics. And if you want to hop over to my Twitter page, it's at Weather Eastern. It's MeteoMark.com. Thanks for joining me. Question or comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification button so you're alerted when a video comes out.